Hello everyone, thank you so much for clicking on today's video. I'm super excited because we're going to be doing all the books I read / recommendations. I feel like for me, I'm a pretty harsh rater when it comes to books. I feel like most of them are just like generic, like a baseline 3 stars for me. So these ones are, I guess, above average. I'm not going to go through the ratings of all of them, but they were like a 3.75 I think at the least. But I realized whenever I rate books, I used to like try my best to have like some type of formula to make it as consistent as possible. So then if I recommend a book, it might be easier for you guys to tell whether or not we have the same taste or not. But honestly, I realized while doing this that that's kind of stupid because sometimes it's just about how the book makes you feel. Like I have some books here that the writing wasn't really the best, the plot wasn't like amazing, but it just made me feel good, it made me feel happy, and I really enjoyed reading it. So I'm gonna rate it high, and I'm not gonna like suppress my feelings in order to follow some type of equation and make sure that I weigh everything equally, because sometimes it's literally just how it makes me feel. So keep that in mind while I go through these, because I don't feel like they're all equal in plot or character development or writing or anything like that. It's just books that made me feel happy while I read them. So I'm not going to be going way too in detail with all these books just because I feel like this will be super long, and all these books for the most part either have a reading vlog or a review or some type of video where I go way more in detail about them. So I'll either mention that or link them in the description so you know where to go if you want to know more about my full thoughts and ratings and all of that. So I'm just gonna briefly go over these. Also, last thing before we get started, I'm gonna be doing a all the books I read in 2023 video with all the good, the bad, the mediocre, everything. So I'm super excited for that one, but it's gonna be coming out in the next few weeks, so keep that in mind. So right now we're just gonna go talking only about the books that I read this year that I really enjoyed. So I'm gonna start in order from earliest this year to most recent books, and we're gonna go ahead and start with Varity. At the end of 2022, I was starting to get into reading again, and everyone everywhere was talking about Colleen Hoover. I read a few of her books last year, so I was continuing with that. I think this was the first book I read in 2023 as a whole, but this is like a romantic thriller, got some mystery aspects in it. It revolves around this lady named Varity, and she can no longer continue writing the books in a series that everybody loves, and so her husband Jeremy hires this woman named Lowen to continue writing her stories just so it can be completed. But as Lowen goes to their home and starts looking at all of the notes and transcripts that Varity has written down for her stories, Lowen finds an unreleased autobiography of Varity that describes what happened when Varity and Jeremy's daughter died. And so a lot of crazy stuff happened, and Lowen starts to gain feelings for Jeremy. She is in this position where she's not sure she should tell Jeremy the truth of what she finds in these manuscripts. And so it was really interesting for me to read. I enjoyed it. There was a lot of suspense. I made a whole reading vlog for this as well, but it's a very messed up book. The romance wasn't really romancing for me, even though there is elements of it in here, but because there were just so many other aspects, I just couldn't really find myself loving the romance that was going on because I was so stressed trying to find out what happened. And so I really enjoyed this book. There's also an extended version that I read online. I found the PDF for free, but there is a different version of this that has it in the book. But it was out of my element for sure because I just really like lighthearted romance books for the most part, and so this one was, like I said, like a thriller, so pleasantly surprised that I enjoyed it this much. But yeah, lots of dark elements, so keep that in mind, but I liked it. Then next, I think, is probably my favorite book of this year. This was my first 5-star book that I rated this year, and I don't give out 5 stars very easily at all. So it's Archer's Voice, and it revolves around a girl named Bree who moves to this small town. When she was in this town as a child, that was the last time she remembers being truly happy. And so she's kind of running away from her problems and goes to this small town, and then she runs into a guy named Archer, and he's very rugged looking and he doesn't speak. She's very intrigued by him and doesn't know what happened. Nobody in the town really knows what happened to him because one day he spoke and then the next he didn't. So they don't really know much about that, but but she ends up having a friendship with him, and her father was deaf, so they were able to communicate via sign language, but he's not deaf, just as a side note. But it was such a good read, guys. Like, this book was so wholesome, so sweet. I can't even think of really anything major that I don't like about this book. It was one that made me feel sad to leave the world once it was over. I just felt so much love, like, as cheesy as it sounds, just reading the book and through the pages. It was also one of those books where I cared a lot about what was going in the town, because there was some things going on in the town as well, in the future of the town, and I just felt like I cared about like so many things. I was interested in everything. There wasn't a single boring part in this. I actually loved it so much I bought my friend this book for her birthday, and she wasn't even really into reading at the time, but even she read it and she said she really enjoyed it. And even at the back it says one of the top 100 romance novels of all time on Goodreads, and I completely understand why. Like, this was just so good. So if you want a really nice break your heart but then stitch it back together type book, read it. Like, there's just so much wholesomeness in this and growth and character development. Loved it. I made a reading vlog for this, so if you want to know everything, watch that video. But probably my favorite book I read all year. I absolutely loved it. Next, I have the Dreamland Billionaire series. It revolves around these three brothers who are billionaires, and in order to get their percentage of their inheritance, they have to complete the individual tasks that their deceased grandfather left them. So I really enjoyed these books, specifically the first two, which is The Fine Print and Terms and Conditions, just because they are Grumpy Sunshine books, and I really love a good Grumpy Sunshine and billionaires, dude. Like, I eat up billionaire tropes, guys. I don't know what it is about it, but I just really love them, and these books really did it for me. In this book, we follow the brother named Rowan, and he has to renovate Dreamland, which is pretty much Disneyland, but in this universe, it's Dreamland. These covers are so beautiful, by the way, and the texture of the books as well. I don't know if you've ever seen these in stores, but these books, they just feel like really good quality books. But yeah, Rowan has to renovate Dreamland in this book, and Rowan is the youngest brother in this book. Then we have Declan, who is the oldest brother, and he has to get married and have a child. He's also a very grumpy guy, and I really love this one. And then the last one was Final Offer, and in this one, he has to spend a summer at the lake house that he used to go to while growing up before selling it. So he's the middle child. His name's Callahan. I did enjoy this book, but guys, it's the biggest, and it's a second chance romance, which I don't really care about. I feel like with second chances, it's just one of those things where it's like kind of been there, done that. But the reason why I'm adding this to my favorite books is just because you see a lot of these characters in it, and it wraps up really nicely at the end of this book. So yeah, love these books, but if I could choose my favorite out of all of them, this one 1000%. I rated this a 5-star, which is the second 5-star book that I rated this year, and like I said, I don't give them out very often. And this was probably just one of those books where I can't say like, oh, the writing was beautiful and the plot was amazing. Like, even though I ate it up, it just made me feel good. I just really enjoyed it, and the girl is a black main character, and she doesn't go through struggles in the stereotypical way that I feel like a lot of people put whenever there's a black main character. So I love this so much. This was my favorite. If you had to read any of them, read this one, but I highly recommend just reading the whole series. This is a good book to introduce you to the characters in this one, and yeah, I really like this, and the covers are just so beautiful. I could talk about it for days, but Dreamland Billionaire series, read it. I absolutely loved it. So the next book is Scarred. This is the second book in the Never After series, but I read them very out of order. Read it in orders of books 2, 1, and 3, but it's okay because they are standalones. But pretty much the Never After series is a fairy tale reimagining, so the author takes fairy tales and reimagines it, and it has like a dark twist to it, and we root for the villains in these stories. So Scarred is about the Lion King. They're not actually lions, they're real people, but it follows the same story more or less, like how in the Lion King, Scar wants to kill Mufasa and become king, and same thing in here. The guy who is representative of Scar, his name is Tristan, and he wants to kill Mufasa or Michael and take over the throne. But in a way, we're rooting for Tristan because Michael is not a good person at all. But something that's also interesting about this book is that Michael, who's the king at this point, is engaged to this girl named Sarah, and Sarah was sent to kill kill Michael because something happened regarding her family, and this is her way of seeking revenge from this family. And so it's very interesting because Tristan starts having feelings for Sarah and vice versa, but they're in an interesting situation because he has his own agenda and so does she. So I really enjoyed it. It is a very dark book, so don't read it if you need like lots of happiness, because I don't think you're gonna really get it in this book. Not saying that there's not like a happy ending or whatever, but like there's lots of violence and stuff and questionable things in these series, so keep that in mind. They could be disturbing for some readers. Okay, next we got the Twisted series. Honestly, I recommend the whole series just because I feel like it's a really nice, lighthearted read. It's about 4 best friends and how they find love, and the love interests are still somehow all interconnected. I really enjoy the series because there's a lot of grumpy sunshine tropes in this. There's enemies to lovers, which those are my 2 favorite ones, and there's also billionaires in here, which of course I love a good billionaire. So I really liked it. I was very surprised going into this series because I thought initially I was going to really enjoy probably Twisted Lies the most, just because it had the billionaire aspect. It also had fake dating in here. I think was it Grumpy Sunshine? I don't remember if there was Grumpy Sunshine in this, but I really thought I was gonna love this. Same thing with this one. I thought I was gonna really like it because Grumpy Sunshine, and then same thing with Twisted Games. I thought I would also really like this. Not to say that I don't like these books because they're in this video, but I will say I like this one the least. I thought it was kind of annoying and silly in certain parts. Also, this one, I felt like the slow burn was way too long and it just didn't hit the way I wanted it to. I felt like Twisted Love, it was good. It had a weird ending, honestly. I felt like it was kind of rushed, but I did like it. Like, he has a heart of ice, but for her, he'd burn the world. I ate it up, gotta say. But if I'm being honest, the one that surprised me the most was Twisted Hate. I thought I was gonna not hate this book, but I thought I wasn't gonna like it the most just because this is the 3rd book and we get introduced to characters that we already seen before. And if I'm being honest, I thought that the girl was kind of annoying. Like, I wasn't excited at all to read this book. And also the guy is the brother of the main girl here in this book. His name is Josh. And I thought, like, I don't know, I just didn't think I would see it going well. But I gotta say, it just made me feel good. I just really liked this one. And surprisingly, because it wasn't like a Grumpy Sunshine, and he's not a billionaire, which is crazy because I love me a good billionaire, but I just really enjoyed it. I have a whole review about it that you guys can check out, but for whatever reason, I really enjoyed it. And I think I maybe like this book second. So in order, it'd probably be this book, Twisted Games, and then this book last. You can find out more in detail in that review, but Josh Chen, guys, don't be sleeping on Josh Chen because I really enjoyed this book. Okay, then the next book is The Sweetest Oblivion. I read it on my Kindle, on Kindle Unlimited. It is a dark romance mafia book, and it revolves around 2 characters, Elena and Nico, and they start to like gain feelings for each other and all that. But the only problem is Nico's engaged to Elena's sister, and so that's a big problem. And because this is a mafia, it's an arranged marriage, and a lot of times in mafias they have arranged marriages strictly for business to keep the peace among mafias and all that. So it's not a quick little, oh, I'm gonna follow my heart, and nothing like that. It's life or death. You said you're gonna marry my daughter, you're gonna marry my daughter. So I really liked it. I thought the writing was pretty good as well. It's a billionaire trope, so of course I'm gonna eat that up. And also it's a touch her and you're dead trope, which I love. And I feel like in all these billionaire tropes, it is touch her and you're dead. So I love that. The only thing I really didn't like about this book was the big climax, and the conflict that was arising was very silly to me, and I felt like it could have easily been avoided. And also there's some racial aspects that made me feel a little bit uncomfortable that might tie into the author and some drama that she was associated with. But overall, just with the story itself, I enjoyed reading it and I thought it was good. And then next we have the Shatter Me series, which I feel like I've been talking about a lot these past few videos. These are a lot of books and there's more novellas as well. It revolves around a 17-year-old girl who has this ability where if you touch her skin, it has the potential to kill you, and so she gets locked up for almost a year in this asylum. It's a dystopian fantasy book, so the society is very messed up and people have no rights whatsoever. But I really enjoyed it because dystopian books always have like a sweet spot in my heart that I really enjoy, and there's a love triangle in this which I really liked as well. Each book has a different rating, but I think there are 2 or 3 of these books that I rated a 5-star. So I think by the whole year, there was only 3. I'm gonna count this series as its own entity, but I think counting this and then Terms and Conditions and then Archer's Voice, there's only 3 books that I rated a 5-star this year, which is not very many, and they're all very different from each other, the books that I did rate a 5-star. Everything else ranges between like a 3.75, 4 and onward. But yeah, these are all the books that I read this year. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you guys have any book recommendations, please let me know because I'm always looking for more. Also, stay tuned for my all the books that I read in 2023 video. I feel like it's gonna be super exciting and I hope to see you there. But other than that, thank you for watching and I'll see you next week. Bye!